Wagadu, Mysteries of a Ghanaian Empire. Close your eyes and imagine a kingdom so loaded with gold that its kings were dubbed Lords of Gold, their wealth leaving traders from across the Sahara absolutely floored. Picture camel caravans trudging through endless dunes, hauling shimmering gold and precious salt to distant lands. A place where cultures slammed together, faiths wove into a wild, vibrant tapestry, and secrets were etched into the heart of thriving cities. This is Wagadu, the Ghana Empire, a West African legend that ruled the Sahel over 1,000 years ago in what's now Mali and Mauritania. Its markets pulsed with life, its rulers wielded power that rippled across continents, and its mysteries still grab you by the soul. How did a scattering of villages become a trade titan? What fueled its epic rise and its gut-wrenching fall? And why does it feel like Wagadu's hiding a secret too big to crack? Today, we're diving deep into the enigma of Wagadu, sifting through the sands of time to unearth a civilization that rewrote Africa's story. I'm the Ancientologist, and I spend my time uncovering the parts of history they don't teach in school. Hit that like button and subscribe to join this wild ride. You're not going to want to skip a single moment. The birth of Wagadu. Let's zip back to the 4th century AD, deep in the Sahel, that golden grassy strip where the Sahara's dunes kiss West Africa's lush forests. In what's now southeastern Mauritania and western Mali, the Soninke people were just starting out. Think small villages, mud brick huts, cattle munching grass, folks swapping goods with wandering nomads. Nothing too flashy, right? But then, something sparked. The Soninke, wielding iron weapons and scrappy horses from North African traders, started stitching their chiefdoms together. By the 8th century, they'd built Wagadu, the Ghana Empire, a kingdom that made the world sit up and stare. Their capital, Kumbi-Saleh, wasn't just a city. It was a global crossroads, buzzing with merchants, scholars, and big-time dreamers. The name Ghana didn't mean the land. It was the king's title, the Lord of Gold. How do you go from herding cows to running an empire that stuns the globe? I'm already hooked, aren't you? The Gold and Salt Highway. Wagadu's secret weapon was its spot on the map. Planted right between gold-rich forests to the south and salt mines to the north, it was the ultimate middleman in the trans-Saharan trade. Gold, shiny, king-making treasure, poured from mines in Bambouk and Bur, while salt, worth more than gold in the tropics for preserving food, came from desert spots like Tagaza. When camels, the ships of the desert, arrived around the 3rd century, trade exploded. Caravans stretching for miles hauled gold, salt, ivory, ostrich feathers, and even enslaved people across the Sahara to North Africa and the Mediterranean. Kumbi-Saleh became a trade mecca, its markets bursting with spices, silks, and exotic goods from afar. The Soninke kings grew immensely wealthy by taxing every deal, turning riches into power. Picture running a kingdom where your treasures literally sparkle. How did they keep that juggernaut rolling? A king called Ghana. At Wagadu's heart was the Ghana, the king, a title that meant warrior king or Lord of Gold. This wasn't just a ruler, he was larger than life, almost divine. Oral traditions tell tales of Dinga Cissé, a half-mythical founder who supposedly had powers straight out of a superhero story, uniting the Soninke with pure charisma. By the 11th century, kings like Tenka Menin were the real deal, commanding armies of 200,000, wearing gold-trimmed armor and ruling from palaces that left Arab travelers in awe. The Ghana was the empire's glue, managing trade, justice, and spiritual life. A network of governors ran the provinces, collecting taxes and keeping the peace. Imagine the pressure, being that king, balancing gold, power, and a dozen rival tribes. What would you do to keep the empire thriving? Kumbi-Saleh, the heartbeat of Wagadu. Kumbi-Saleh was Wagadu's soul, a city split like a tale of two worlds. One half was the royal zone, with mud brick palaces, sacred groves, and a king's court overflowing with grandeur. The other was a commercial district where Muslim merchants set up shop, haggling in Soninke, Berber, and Arabic over piles of gold dust and slabs of salt. Arab writer al-Bakri, who visited in the 11th century, describes streets lined with two-story houses, mosques, and markets so busy you could get lost in the crowd. This wasn't a dusty outpost. It was a global hub that attracted poets, scholars, and craftsmen from across the Sahara. The atmosphere was vibrant, almost like a celebration that never ended. But keeping a city like that under control was another challenge entirely. Picture yourself weaving through those markets, the scent of gold in the air. How would you govern a place that alive? A tapestry of faiths. Wagadu was a cultural explosion, and its spiritual life was a vibrant mix. The Soninke held tight to their roots. Spirits in the trees, rituals for the land, and offerings to ancestors. Around the 8th century, Islam arrived with North African traders changing the rhythm of life. Merchants and elites began praying toward Mecca, drawn to Islam's trade advantages and the use of Arabic for record-keeping. Kings like Tenkamenin welcomed Muslim scholars while still honoring traditional rites, creating a blend where mosques stood beside sacred groves. Kumbi Saleh's mud brick minarets, carved with geometric designs, became symbols of this fusion. It wasn't a clash, it was a dance, making Wagadu a bridge between worlds. But did that harmony strengthen the empire, or quietly plant the seeds of trouble? The Art of Wagadu. Wagadu wasn't just rich in gold, it was a feast for the eyes. Artisans produced pottery with striking patterns, wove textiles bursting with color, and forged iron tools that were as beautiful as they were functional. Kumbi Saleh's architecture stood out. Towering mud brick mosques and palaces etched with intricate designs that radiated sophistication. Arab travelers even compared them to the great cities of the Middle East, and that was no small compliment. Sculptures of ancestors in wood or clay filled sacred spaces, connecting the Soninke to their heritage. Every creation, from a woven cloth to a carved door, was like a love letter to their identity. Imagine walking through a city where every corner tells a story. How did they pour so much soul into their craft? The power of the pen. Wagadu had intellect to match its beauty. With Islam came Arabic, and with Arabic came the art of writing. Kumbi Saleh became a haven for scholars, with scribes recording trade logs, poetry, and fragments of history. Local leaders established schools in the provinces, teaching children mathematics, astronomy, and Islamic law. This wasn't only about faith, it was about staying sharp. A literate elite could track taxes, manage trade, and demonstrate their sophistication to neighboring states. The Soninke's oral traditions, epic tales of Dinga Cissé and heroic kings, gained new life through written Arabic, preserving stories that might otherwise have faded. Imagine a scholar hunched over a scroll, candlelight flickering, capturing the very heart of an empire. That's a true legacy. Theories of Wagadu's rise. So what turned Wagadu into a superstar? It's not just the gold and salt, there's gotta be more to it. Was it the Soninke's iron weapons and horses, giving them an edge over neighbors? The camel, turning the Sahara into a trade superhighway? Or the king's diplomatic mojo, juggling alliances with Berbers, Arabs, and local tribes? Some say it was the Sahel itself, perfectly placed between desert and forest. Others point to legends like Dinga Cissé, whose mythic vibe rallied the Soninke. There's even a wild theory that Wagadu tapped into ancient trade networks, maybe linked to far-off empires like Aksum or India. Every clue feels like it's hiding a bigger secret. If you were building an empire back then, what would you bet on to make it soar? Share your guess in the comments. The AlMaravids storm. By the 11th century, Wagadu was riding high, but trouble was brewing. The AlMaravids, a fierce Berber group from the Sahara, came charging in with Islamic zeal and sharp swords. In 1054, they snatched Outaghost, a key Wagadu trade city, shaking the empire's grip. Some say they hit Kumbi Saleh too, though historians argue it was more about choking trade than outright conquest. Either way, the AlMaravids messed with Wagadu's cash flow, cutting into its gold-salt empire. Their push for strict Islam might have clashed with Wagadu's chill blend of faiths, stirring up tension at home. Imagine your empire's wealth drying up while invaders preach a new way of life. That's a rough spot, right? The military might of Wagadu. Wagadu wasn't just about trade, it had muscle. Oral traditions claim kings like Tenkamenen commanded armies of 200,000, with archers, cavalry, and iron-armed infantry. These weren't just for show, they defended trade routes, annexed neighbors, and kept rival tribes in check. The Soninke's ironworking gave them an edge, swords and spears that outclassed wooden weapons. They even had small horses, perfect for the Sahel's open plains, making their cavalry a nightmare for enemies. But maintaining that kind of army? That took serious coin and control. Fortified outposts along trade routes doubled as military bases, but internal rivalries sometimes left them vulnerable. Picture leading an army that size, knowing one slip could cost your empire. How'd they pull it off for centuries? The slow fade. Wagadu's fall wasn't a single blow, it was a slow bleed. By the late 12th century, the empire was unraveling. Climate change hit like a truck. The Sahel was drying out, turning fertile fields into dust. Crops failed, tax money tanked, and food got scarce. Trade routes shifted, with new paths bypassing Wagadu's markets. Inside, things got messy. Provincial governors started acting like mini-kings, chipping away at the Ghana's power. Then came the neighbors. The Soso state, led by the Kante blacksmiths, and later the Mali Empire, started carving up Wagadu's turf. By the 13th century, Mali had stolen the crown, leaving Wagadu a shadow of itself. Imagine watching your empire slip away piece by piece. That's gotta hurt. The rise of Mali. As Wagadu faded, the Mali Empire swooped in, grabbing the gold salt baton. Founded in the early 13th century, Mali, with kings like Mansa Musa, took wealth to absurd levels. Musa's 1324 pilgrimage to Mecca had the world gasping. Mali's capital, Niani, became the new Kumbi Sala, a thriving center of trade and learning that echoed Wagadu's glory but amplified it. Bigger mosques, more scholars, and a wider reach, Mali built on Wagadu's foundation and made it its own. Still, it's hard to shake the feeling that some of Wagadu's secrets were lost in the transition. Imagine the Soninke traders watching as a new empire stepped into the spotlight. Wagadu's global connections. Wagadu was no isolated kingdom. It was deeply connected to a vast global network. Its gold flowed into North African markets, sailed across the Mediterranean, and even appeared in European coins. Arab travelers like al-Bakri and Ibn Battuta wrote detailed accounts, linking Wagadu firmly to the Islamic world. Archaeologists have found trade goods, glass beads, maybe from India, or shells from East Africa, hinting at links to empires like Aksum or the Swahili coast. Could Wagadu have been part of a massive ancient trade network, swapping goods and ideas across continents? Compare that to Great Zimbabwe's stone palaces or Timbuktu's later libraries. It's like Wagadu's a piece of a puzzle we're still piecing together. Imagine being a merchant carrying tales from Kumbi Saleh to Cairo. What kind of world was that? The lost technologies. Here's a brain twister. What tech powered Wagadu's rise? Their ironworking was next level, swords and tools that outshone neighbors. Gold mining with panning and shaft techniques was a closely guarded secret. Then there's the architecture, mud brick palaces and mosques that stood tall in the Sahel's brutal climate. How'd they build so precisely with just clay and straw? Some wonder if they had lost tricks, like advanced smelting or trade logistics that rivaled modern systems. After Wagadu fell, some of these skills faded, maybe because they weren't written down. Picture an artisan in a smoky forge, hammering iron, knowing their craft could vanish. What secrets did they take with them? The women of Wagadu. Wagadu's story isn't just about kings. Women played a huge role, though the records are spotty. Oral traditions hint at powerful queens and matriarchs who shaped Soninke society. Women ran households, wove textiles that fueled trade, and sometimes acted as spiritual leaders in traditional rituals. In markets, they were traders, haggling over gold and cloth with the best of them. Some stories even suggest women advised kings or led communities when men were off fighting. But as Islam grew, their roles shifted, with men dominating public life. Still, the Soninke's matrilineal traditions kept women's influence strong behind the scenes. Imagine being a woman in Kumbi Saleh, weaving a legacy in a bustling empire. What was their world like? Echoes in the sand. Even after Wagadu fell, its fingerprints are all over West Africa. The Mali and Songhai empires borrowed its tricks: centralized rule, trade smarts, cultural blending. Archaeologists digging in Kumbi Saleh have found mud brick foundations, pottery shards, and gold weights that scream of its glory days. Soninke griots still sing of Dinga Sise and Tenka Menin, keeping their legends alive. But saving this legacy is a fight. Desertification, looters, and modern sprawl threaten what's left. Efforts to record oral histories and protect sites are racing against time. Picture holding a 1,000-year-old pot, feeling its story in your hands. How do we keep that magic alive? Wagadu's more than a dusty history lesson. It's a mystery carved in the Sahel's sands, a tale of gold, guts, and glory that still grabs you by the heart. Its markets, kings, blended faiths, and forgotten women don't just show us the past, they dare us to keep digging. Which piece of this puzzle's got you hooked? The dazzling wealth, the AlMaravids storm, the lost city of Kumbi Saleh, the global ties, or the legends that won't quit? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and let's keep chasing the secrets of this epic African empire. Catch you in the next one.